Hey guys, welcome to my channel, and in today's video, as the title suggests, we're going to be taking a deep dive into Anastasia Beverly Hills Magic Touch Concealer. Now, the Anastasia Beverly Hills team was so nice to send these over to me. They actually let me choose 3 shades, and I just want to put it out there that even though this was sent in PR, it never sways my opinion. So like I said, they sent me 3 shades that I chose. I chose shade number 8. This was predominantly for my under eyes. 10 because, you know, in case I get any breakouts around my skin, and also 17 because I wanted to try it as a bronzer. So today we're gonna cover all aspects of those. First off, let's talk about the price. Now, this is being sold in Sephora Malaysia at 145 ringgit. In the US, it's going for 29 USD, which means even after conversion, it's actually cheaper to be purchasing this in the US. One tube has 12 milliliters of product, which equates to 12 ringgit and 8 cents per milliliter. Now, I know a lot of people may think like, wow, this is an expensive ass concealer, and I do see where you guys are coming from because the price may sound like pretty steep considering it's 145 ringgit. Like, ooh, you can buy a lot of stuff with that. However, after doing some calculation, I do think that this is competitively priced. Now, a lot of people have been saying that this reminds them a lot of the infamous Tarte Shape Tape, and with good reason. I do agree on that, but here's something very interesting. So the Tarte Shape Tape is going at 120 ringgit here in Malaysia, but only 29 USD in the States. So actually in the States, you're paying the same price for the product. However, in Malaysia, there is a 25 ringgit difference. But guess what? The Tarte Shape Tape only has 10 milliliters of product. So if you actually do the math, you're technically paying 12 ringgit more for the Anastasia Beverly Hills concealer. However, if you are buying this in the US, you're actually paying more for the Tarte Shape Tape. Bet you didn't know that? And if you didn't understand what I just said, I'm just gonna be putting some math up right here so you can kind of get the gist of where I'm coming from. Basically, what I'm trying to say is if you are a US resident, you're actually paying more for the Tarte Shape Tape. However, if you're in Malaysia, you're actually paying slightly more for the Anastasia Beverly Hills one. Quick math. Now let's cover the packaging. I actually really like the packaging. I think it's very sleek and simple. I love that there is like a clear bottom so that you can actually see the shade. I think it comes in handy because when I have 3 shades like this, I can actually easily pick out which one I would want to use. I think the cover suits a lot of their branding right now with the rose gold, which I think is very pretty. It's very expensive looking, and the material so far has been pretty sturdy. I also accidentally dropped this down the staircase and it's still in one piece, so that's great. Now, if we open this up, you're gonna see a ginormous doe foot applicator that comes. I feel like this is very trendy right now with a lot of these concealers. The doe foot applicator is huge. It's pretty hit and miss. I personally kind of enjoy the doe foot applicator being this big. Another one that I can think of besides the Tarte Shape Tape would be the e.l.f. Camo Concealers. I don't really use this much because it's a bit too light for me, but look at this. Look at how big this doe foot applicator is. I have the Fenty concealer here, and I'm just gonna show you guys the difference in the wands. Look at that. Look at how skinny and small the Fenty one is in comparison to the e.l.f. and also the Anastasia one. But I guess you can say the Anastasia one is kind of like a good in-between. Unfortunately, I do not own the Tarte Shape Tape, but I have used it a couple of times. I loaned it from a friend just to test it out, and the wand is huge as well. I wish I had it right now so that I could compare the size with the Anastasia one, but let's just put it this way, it's huge.
That's what she said!
Now, the packaging is great and all, but here is my bone to pick with this. I hate the dispenser knob thingy in the concealer. I don't know what it's called, but the stopper. I feel like the stopper is not small enough. So when you pull out the wand, can you see how much product is there on the wand? And the thing is, you don't really need a lot of this product when you're applying it on your under eye or anywhere for the matter, to be honest. So this is just an outrageous amount of product on the wand. Before I use this, I have to graze a ton of product off the wand and then feel like, okay, this is enough. Take a look in there. Look at how much product I had to graze off. So I would say that's one of the negatives that I don't like, because I just like to go in straight from the wand, like pick it out and go in straight with the product. But this is just way too much. I'll show you with the e.l.f. The difference between the e.l.f. is that this one, the product actually comes off at the tip. And it's just like that little knobbin on the tip. And it's not a lot. If you look into the tube right now, it's actually very clean still. And even if I were to take a little bit of the product off, it's not that much product. So the dispenser or the little nubbin, I feel like just needs to be a little tighter so you don't get so much product out. Smell-wise, I feel like this smells like any ordinary foundation, concealer, primer kind of base product smell. It really doesn't have a scent to it. It just smells like regular foundation, to be honest. Based on the PR card that I was sent, I believe that there are about 25 shades in the range. 25, which is amazing, to be honest. I really like that now brands are experimenting. Well, not experimenting. I think the word is being more inclusive and really releasing a large number of shade range the moment the product launches. Because I remember last time, like, they would be so hesitant with all this. They would start with like a small amount, and then if the product goes well, then they slowly like release more and more. That's not the way to go anymore. But on that note, in Malaysia, we only have 16 out of the 25 shades, which I feel like is relatively okay, because looking at the shade range that we got, it still covers a good like light to deep skin tone kind of a range. It's just a few in between shades. Do I wish we had all 25? Yeah, I do, because I feel like we're always missing out in terms of the shade range, not just in foundations, but a lot of brands skip us out in terms of like lipstick, blush, not eyeshadow though, but usually they would take out a couple of shades, and I wish that we had that more buying power here so that we could just be included in the whole shade range. But from what I saw, the 16 shades that we have seem to be very inclusive, and I think that's a good start. Okay, now let's talk formula, because I love these. I feel like it really rings true with the name in terms of magic touch, because this is truly magical. I mean, some of the claims it says here is it's ultra smooth, it's creaseless, melts into the skin, it's a luminous finish, and I think it all rings true. Here's the thing, the formula is actually pretty thick, but it's not too thick in the sense where it feels drying, and it's actually very easy to blend out, which I normally have a problem with because of my dry skin. And the best part about it is that it doesn't actually feel thick. It actually is very, very lightweight on the face. This is actually a medium coverage, but it's super buildable, and you can take this full coverage like what I have done today. And honestly, even though you layer this up, it doesn't get cakey, and I think that's what I like so much about this. My experience with a lot of full coverage concealers tends to be, it's very drying, it's very cakey. When I tried experimenting with the Tarte Shape Tape at one point, I felt like it was good, but it was just a tad bit drying for me still. It was still a little thick, and I find that the Anastasia one kind of combats that problem that I had with the Tarte Shape Tape. Now, how I tried these out was actually going through an 8-hour wear test. I would layer them. I would also use this with foundation and without foundation, and I would always set it with a brush and also with my Laura Mercier translucent setting powder. On the first day, I actually tried it with no foundation on my under eyes. On one side, I used a brush, and on the other, I used a wet sponge. Now, starting off on the brush side, I actually felt like it was good, it was easy to blend out. It didn't give me that dryness that I was expecting. However, it only got me so far, which is expected with a brush sometimes. I feel like because it gives you so much coverage, you're kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's not like I could drag it to the back, if you get what I mean. Like, it only got me here, and then I had to add more product here, and that was it. Whereas with the sponge side, however, as usual, it blended out really nicely. Less coverage than the brush side. However, I felt like I used less product. However, I feel like I didn't need to use as much product compared to the brush side. So I feel like those are factors, of course, that you need to take into. If you're using a brush, you can get more coverage. However, you may just need to use slightly more product. But I personally love the under eye look of the sponge side. When I first blended it out, I actually said, wow, like out loud. I said, wow, this looks so good. You know, it just gives this like dewy under eye that was really bright, and at the same time, like it just shined and it looked like skin, but it gave you coverage, and it was just good enough to make me say, wow. And that's when I knew this was truly magical. My under eyes did not look dry and it just looked beautiful. Now, even after my 8-hour mark, I will say there was a little bit of creasing, which for me personally is very expected because I have two very deep lines on both sides of my eyes. So most of the time, after a couple of hours, I'm gonna get some creasing there. And I'm forgiving because this time, even with this concealer, the reason why I agree with the less creasing and stuff like that was because I got a lot less creasing as compared to other concealers that I normally use. So I would say the creasing on this was actually pretty good, like it held up pretty well. But I will say that both sides held up really nicely, but I really love how the sponge side wore because it still looked very natural and dewy even after the 8 hours. Now on the next day, I actually tried it with foundation on as a base. I don't know why, but on the brush side, I found it a little bit harder that day. Again, I feel like it could also be the fact that my skin was having an extremely dry season at that point. And it just felt like really hard to blend almost. But on the sponge side, however, I felt like it was beautiful. It went very smoothly. It just melted everything together and it looked great. Even after the 8 hours, I found the same problems as I did without the foundation, and it still wore really well. I still favored the sponge side. Generally, the three products from Anastasia Beverly Hills, like the creams and also the concealer, I just feel like it works the best with a wet sponge. As for shade 17, I used this as a bronzer. The first time I used it with a brush, it was chaotic because it was the first time I was even using the product, and I didn't realize how much product that is dispensed off from the doe foot applicator because I just took it out and went straight to it. And I put so much on, I was like an Oompa Loompa. It was orange. This is way too orange for me to be using it as a bronzer. I mean, online, I kind of chose the wrong shade. That's on me. But actually, this is actually really pretty as a bronzer as well. So this is what I use to actually contour my face today, just to give it a little bit more warmth. And you really need to work in sections. All I did was I start with the forehead first. I would put like 4 dots, blend it out with a sponge. And I would do the same for my cheekbones and also my jawline. And you need to work with sections and you have to use a wet sponge. I've tried using it with a brush and I feel like it just doesn't work. It doesn't blend as well. But seriously though, if you're gonna use this to bronze or contour, take it from me. Use very little product because it was a disaster. I think as an under eye concealer, it is superb, superb, superb. And again, I wanted to reiterate that I don't have the Tarte Shape Tape to do a direct comparison, but I do remember how I felt about it when I got the chance to try it out. It felt just a tad bit drying for me. So again, that's why I'm leaning more towards the Anastasia one, because this again is just magical and it has worked wonders for my under eyes. Also again, like some medium to full coverage concealers tend to get very tacky, and I don't feel like this gives me that tackiness that I have. For example, with the Bye Bye Under Eye from IT Cosmetics, I find that to be a bit tacky and I need a lot of time to really like blend it out because it is so thick, and I don't find the same problem with this thanks to the formula, so I highly recommend. Alright guys, so that was my review of the Anastasia Beverly Hills Magic Touch Concealer. I hope you guys enjoyed and you found this helpful. If you do, give this a like. subscribe so you can see more. I hope that this has been helpful for you guys, and I'll see you soon in my next video. Bye! Oh, just in time. I made it just in time! Before the camera shut off!